Well, welcome back. We have a little bit more down-to-earth background this time. Hi, I'm Roy Potter again, letting you know that. This is just going to be a real quick shotgun segment, just to throw a few things politically out there that I think are important. You know, what's happened in our country in the last 100 years, actually longer than that, but the last 100 years has been actually quite incredible. Not all of it good, unfortunately. So I want to remind people of some things that have happened. We need to hold our government accountable for what they do. Number one, the sinking of the battleship Maine that started the Spanish-American War. What actually happened there, of course, was that American agents sunk that ship to get us into the war. Loss of life there was horrendous, and then the political reason that we did that. Something that needs to be examined. Move on down to the Depression and what happened there with our ties to international banking, the irresponsibility that happened with that for greed, and how people suffered for it. I had some friends here a little while ago that told me, well, there are safeguards in place now, that will never happen again. And here we are. This is February 28, 2009. What's going on right now, of course, is a major economic downturn. They don't want to admit it's a depression, but it is there, and if you listen to Matter of Truth, you'll find out that's the case. Moving forward to the 1950s, liberator of Europe, President Eisenhower. Great man, don't really want to disparage him, but two things happened that show a dichotomy in his presidency that causes me some trouble. One's good, the other isn't. The first one that we're going to talk about is the one that isn't good. It's about the Guatemalan situation. An American corporation, the United Fruit Company, had leased property in Guatemala. The president wanted to take some of that. The president of Guatemala wanted to take some of that property back so that the peasants would have places to grow food. They were starving. The United Fruit Company went to the United States government, and we ended up accusing Guatemala of having a communist takeover, because there wasn't one. We even went so far as to send agents down there, intelligence agents, who posed as communist guerrillas, and we accused Guatemala of having an insurgency. It was not going on at all. It was all made up. Interesting thing happened similar to that in Nicaragua with Somos and the Sandinistas. If you look at what really happened there and who the Sandinistas went to for help initially, very, very interesting. But I want to talk about the other thing that happened in President Eisenhower's presidency. His last address to the American people was a warning that the military, the U.S. military-industrial complex, was the most dangerous force in the world, that it needed to be watched very closely. Interesting. Good on President Eisenhower for admitting that. Unfortunately, he wasn't heeded, and we got into the Vietnam War, Korean War as well, but the Vietnam War is the one I want to talk about here because of a glaring inconsistency. The Vietnam War, we got into that because of the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which, by the way, never occurred. It was made up. And Congress had the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, not a declaration of war, but a resolution that allowed President Johnson to go on into the Vietnam War. Tragic, and again, we need to hold our leaders' feet to the fire. Moving ahead, I want to talk about the Iran-Contra deal and all the things that happened in conjunction with that. Backing off a little bit to President Carter's presidency, the hostages that were taken by Iran. Needless to say, we had done some horrendous things to Iran back in the 50s. Unseated the government, placed the Shah in. I know all of this that was going on. A lot of Americans have forgotten about it. But I want to just stick with the hostage situation right now. Just to let you know and remind you that it was the Reagan team that kept those people in the prison there, in the hostage situation, so that they could have a big release on the inauguration day for Reagan. So how long did they stay into the hostages? How long did they stay there? Just so that there could be this grandiose release on the inauguration. Jump ahead to the Iran-Contra. I won't go into that a very great deal other than to say that the people like Oliver North who say that you must violate the Constitution in order to protect it are crazy. You can't violate a principle in order to protect it. That doesn't make any sense at all. If anything, it weakened the Constitution, what those guys did. The invasion of Panama. We invaded a foreign country on the pretense that, oh, hey, they were assaulting one naval officer and his family. There was a question as to whether that really happened, but even if it did, You're going to go into that country and imprison the president of that country in a U.S. prison. And as much as I dislike President Bush and the things that he did that were unconstitutional, violated international law and basic human decency, do I want a foreign government coming in here and arresting our president, putting him in their prison system? No, of course not. We need to examine that and ask what happened. Yeah, the Panama Canal Treaty and all that has some to do with it, but regardless, we still invaded a foreign country. By the way, Panama Canal is always not controlled by the Chinese. Gulf War I, what got us into the Gulf War I? Saddam Hussein was complaining that Kuwait was drilling sideways into his oil fields. He warned them. This has now been declassified, I think, but if it hasn't, it doesn't matter because it did make it into the public record. The ambassador of the United States actually told Saddam Hussein that the United States would not get involved if he decided to invade Kuwait. That story was squashed later, but it did make it out to the public news media. Moving ahead a little further in the 90s, the Branch Davidians and what happened with them. Ruby Ridge. You know, if those incidents happen in foreign countries, we use those things as reasons to invade those countries and to do something about those problems. In our country, that happens. The whole story was made up. There were no problems there. The federal government has no responsibility on child abuse anyway, which wasn't occurring. It didn't occur. It was just something that was used to get the American people behind it. Horrendous loss of life there, men, women, and children. Ruby Ridge, of course, a wife and a baby, a small boy. We have to hold our government officials accountable for their actions when they violate constitutional principles. It was horrendous. Senator Orrin Hatch said that investigating that, when people got upset about this, they were saying, let's investigate this thing. He said that it was not politically expedient. Hey, they'll go out and arrest somebody on the street for doing something that doesn't affect any of us, and then when these types of things happen, they let it escape. It's wrong. Finally, I want to end up with 9/11, of course. There's some problems with that. In Gulf War II, there were no WMD. Training camps in Iraq, check the no-fly zones and compare it with that. It raises some interesting questions. Finally, there were no Al-Qaeda connections with Iraq either. All that was made up. But where I really want to end up is on the economic situation. A lot of homeowners are being blamed for what's going on right now. Let me remind everybody that President Bush, the Congress, and the mortgage companies were pushing those subprime loans. I know one lady who qualified for a conventional loan. Her credit was very good. They were forcing her to take a subprime loan. She says, I don't want to do that. I don't want any surprises down the road. They kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. The credit company actually called the real estate agent and said, hey, what's wrong with this lady? You know, we want her to do this. Finally, the woman called her real estate agent and said, look, if you don't have them stop doing this to me and give me the regular conventional loan, I want my money back. The deal's off. So these things were pushed on the unwary. The fault lies, yeah, maybe with people overextending their means, but they were being forced into this. So let's get back to constitutional principles and hold our leaders' feet to the fire. We need to do that. Anyway, enough for now. Next time we'll have a little bit more interesting information. We'll talk about something a little different. Thanks so much. Have a good day.